This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by Netflix.com, GoDaddy.com, and Squarespace.com.
On this episode of iFanboy, one of us will die.
Is it me?
Welcome to a very special edition of iFanboy.
Why?
It's
Are we going to talk about drugs?
Someone's dying. Oh. My name's Ron.
I'm Conor.
And I'm Josh. The comic book death has almost become a joke lately.
Almost.
I mean, like, okay, it is.
Two superheroes walk into a bar.
Yeah.
One dies.
And then they fight.
And the sales go up.
I mean, basically, in recent years, that's been the way to sell a book. Someone's going to die. And the big events seem to always, Superman dies, Robin dies, Captain America dies. Crap, I just finished the show. It's the comic book death is this one device that keeps popping up over and over again, and it's come to, recently it's come to mean it's an event, and people are largely cynical about it, I suppose. Like, oh, so-and-so's gonna die doesn't mean anything.
Well,
There's good reason for that.
Yeah, because what's happens is that in comic books, nobody ever really dies. Because they come back.
They?
Well, that's what we're going to talk
So
about.
this is what
But
we're
a lot
gonna
of
talk
times you get a lot of deaths, you get a lot of resurrections, you get a lot of mistaken identity deaths, you get a lot of, I faked my death.
You never saw my body, or...
Exactly, yeah. There's an old axiom in comics, unless you see the body, they might come back.
Even then. I mean, basically the axiom in comics is now, they're not really dead.
Right.
Like what does it take to make a death stick in comics today? It doesn't.
Right.
It's almost a product of... They keep raising stakes in the stories, and how much higher can you go than killing someone off? And you can't, right? That's the most awful things can happen, other than the whole world ending. And that would be silly. So then where do you go from there? Nowhere, other than you keep doing it over and over again. But you can't keep these characters dead, so you have to bring them back. And now you're stuck in the point where someone dies, and people, for the most part, go,
what are you gonna do? Yeah. If you think about it, like how many of the Avengers have died at this point, like right through Captain America.
Didn't Thor die too?
Thor,
yeah.
Hawkeye, yeah.
I mean, just like a bunch of them. Iron Man was paralyzed. I don't know if he's actually been killed.
And then he was de-aged, but that's a whole other thing. But like, it's weird because the death.
Yeah, I want to save that card.
Yeah.
The
most famous, probably recent death would be Superman's father, who died a little while ago in the Action Comics. Totally. But no one really thought, oh, he's dead. Like, because he's died before.
He's died a lot.
So, like, what's the big deal? That's the problem they have, is that...
And I'm not convinced he won't be back.
Yeah, it would be
But it'll be...
And that's why you're not writing Superman.
Yeah, but it's going to be it's going to be in like 8-10 years. You know what I mean? It's a long time.
He'll be gone for a while. But I think they dug themselves into this hole now that they can't get out of. Into a grave. They dug their own grave. And now they can't get out of that grave.
I mean, what are the real stakes for these guys? It's death. I mean,
right?
It's not like
it's losing the people that you love and that you're close to, and it's basically it's that natural human instinct to not want to die.
All right, so let's talk about some of the.
This is like therapy.
Some of the deaths that we've seen in comic books. The first thing that came to mind for me was early on, back in the '60s, Spider-Man, completely defined by the character.
Spider-Man died.
No, but he was defined by the deaths of two characters. Two characters who, by the way, I believe have mostly stayed dead.
Yes.
Well, you can say things like that.
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead. We're such losers. We're such losers.
I'm moving on. Uncle Ben. Have fun storming the castle. Uncle Ben Parker.
To blame.
We can't do this all the time. Uncle Ben Parker.
Uncle Ben Parker.
He makes great rice.
Aunt May's husband.
And a little later, Gwen Stacy.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
Spider-Man's girlfriend.
Those two deaths define Peter Parker.
Yeah, those two deaths have pretty much basically the death of Uncle Ben made him realize that with great power comes great responsibility, and the death of Gwen Stacy made him realize that the Green Goblin was completely fucked in the head.
Well, also because he took responsibility for those.
He failed to save her.
I mean, he's partly responsible for Ben's death in a way.
No, he is.
May might say he's not. No, it's okay. And she's a liar. Right. She's just trying to make him feel better.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Well, he didn't kill Gwen because the Goblin tossed her, but the act of saving her.
There's ambiguity around the death of Gwen Stacy. Basically, Gwen Stacy, Green Goblin found out his secret identity, and was attacking him, was getting him where it hurts, and he captured Gwen Stacy, took her to the top of the George Washington Bridge, and threw her off the bridge. So some believe that the act of throwing her off the bridge snapped her neck and she died. Or no, just that she died and being thrown off the bridge. But Spider-Man tried to save her, shot his web, caught her ankle, and the way it was drawn, it looks like
the recoil of her stopping
snaps her neck, and so Spider-Man killed her. Either way, he'll never know, and that's almost worse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just because
that'll drive you
the
crazy.
fact that he is Spider-Man. The first one, Ben wasn't because he was Spider-Man, but Gwen Stacy, she was targeted because the Goblin wanted to get him. So. Right. I mean, for me, that's almost scarier than that's worse than yourself being killed.
Yeah.
It's your loved ones being killed, so the crazy people go after them. So that's that kind of thing, and so
that happened.
That's respectable and understandable.
And interesting though is that number one is that they haven't come back, which is because it's key to their thing. There have been storylines that have involved Gwen Stacy. Most recently, the aberration of JMS and these kids that Gwen Stacy had with Norman Osborn, which
didn't happen.
I don't acknowledge. But they've kept her dead, and they've kept Ben Parker dead, because if they bring those two back, you negate the character. It doesn't matter.
That wouldn't stop the wrong editor.
Right. And it's funny though, because we have a whole list of other characters who were saying that they can never come back. Jason Todd, Bucky, Barry Allen can never come back.
Well, we'll get to
They're
those.
all back.
One of the more interesting deaths, Marvel in the 70s, was Captain Marvel. Who died of cancer. It was more like it wasn't like a battle death. It was, and that's sort of one of the first stories that I can think of that like everybody gathers around them, and it was really sad and solemn, and it wasn't like a.
They didn't die a hero. They just
right. It
died.
wasn't a big exciting death.
No, it was very tragic. It was really.
Jim Starlin.
Either way, then you had that mess of they sort of brought him back.
Yeah, but
he's not. In Civil War, he appeared again. Turns out later he was a Skrull, but. They could almost bring him back now because the Fuhrer already happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I freaked the fuck out.
You got angry.
I got really pissed off. Because the premise that they brought him back in Civil War was that it was him from a point in time before he died of cancer, came to the future, and I was like, oh my god.
At least that's workable.
It's workable, yeah, but it's
meaning
still,
he'd have to go back eventually, so that he could live out his real life.
But it was just leave well enough alone. Yeah.
But they said nope, he was a Skrull the whole time. But I feel like they've already had the negative reaction. So if they did bring him back, people would just go like.
I really like the miniseries. Brian Reed did a great job on that.
Yeah, so you would kind of shrug and be like, oh well.
What are you gonna do? It's comics.
It's like the fake Spock death in Star Trek 2.
Yeah.
Now.
Remember.
Tuesday. I missed. Oh, sorry.
Go to a bar and get really angry.
Yeah.
And then try to find a smuggler to take you to his Genesis.
So are we done? Are we just officially done talking about comics?
We're just gonna.
It's just a side
science fiction.
We're gonna be the Simpsons now, but like just.
But so Captain Marvel was
slightly less focused than Family Guy.
Captain Marvel was a very, very important death, and likewise Captain Marvel, the like we mentioned earlier, the death of Barry Allen, the Flash, was important to DC, and we'll get to that after this word. I'm here in the heart of New York City in Times Square, and iFanboy wants to wish you a Happy New Year, as well as our sponsor, Squarespace, wishes you a Happy New Year. If you haven't checked out Squarespace yet, head over to squarespace.com. It's a great website that you can use to build your blog, your photography portfolio, your business's website, whatever you need. Squarespace.com is a great tool to use it. You don't need to know any sort of code or anything like that. You can use all of their tools right on the website. It's really easy to design and build a new website. Josh recently launched his site at jaflanagan.com. You can check that out. And Squarespace.com, when you sign up, you get a free 2-week free trial, and if you choose to sign up for the service and use coupon code iFanboy, you can get 10% off your purchase. And we have a challenge for all of you iFanboy viewers out there. All of you, if you want to make a website, a comics-themed website, and send us the URL, email us at contact@ifanboy.com with the subject line Squarespace Contest. We're going to pick the best comic-themed website, and that winner is going to get 1 full year of free service in Squarespace. So full year of Squarespace service just for making a comic book website. How easy is that? So head over to squarespace.com. Don't forget to use the coupon code iFanboy, and wish you a very happy New Year.
And now in 1985, you get Crisis on Infinite Earths, with DC's big universe-changing miniseries, which rebooted the whole universe.
Continuity.
And in order to make it very important and give it a lot of weight, which is what we said earlier, how do you give a story weight? You kill somebody, and they killed Barry Allen, the Flash, the second Flash, in a very tragic death where he runs to save the universe, save the multiverse. He runs so fast he dies and becomes one of the Speed Force. And this is an interesting death because it sort of marks the transition period. The death of Barry Allen is the point where the Silver Age stops.
Yeah. And Barry Allen was the point where Silver Age started.
Yeah. So you start with Barry Allen, where Silver Age, very good little point there. And then he ends with the Silver Age, and Wally West becomes the Flash, starting the new age, whatever, Bronze Age, whatever you want to call it.
Modern age, I call it.
And now in 2008, he's back.
They're bringing him back in Final Crisis.
But I thought he wasn't supposed to come back.
Well, the thing with Barry Allen is he's come back before.
Yeah. I mean, he's come back throughout in the '90s. You know, because with Barry Allen, they introduced this whole he went in the future and lived there for a while, and he'd come back from the future and stuff like that, things like that. But he's never but he always died during Crisis, and so it's kind of like the Captain Marvel switcheroo.
Right.
When he comes back, is this the Barry from Crisis, or is it Barry from the future?
Well, yes and no.
If that's the case, does the Barry who died in this always know he was going to die?
No, but that's right and wrong in that the future Barry's come back, but Barry dies here by merging with the Speed Force.
Yeah.
And they brought him back. He's come out of the Speed Force, so that's not future Barry. That's
True,
Barry after he's died.
Yeah.
So, and it seems as if the Barry that's back now is the Speed Force Barry, not the future Barry. So,
but he was one of those revered deaths that you can never bring back, even though he's come back. You could never bring back Barry, and it's funny how it's like you made the point, Captain Marvel, where they could bring him back now because the fervor has already happened, and I wonder if now the coming back of Barry Allen is okay because he has come back every now and then in little bits.
I think people
it's
forget
also
that.
been 20 plus years. So
Right.
at what point do you just say,
Well, I don't know. I mean, admittedly, I'm a continuity nut, and I'm fairly old school, but I'm like, keep him dead.
I think there's
Wally.
some deaths that need to stay that way just because of their importance. And I think Barry Allen is that way. I think Jason Todd's that way. I think Jason Todd, who was the second Robin and killed by the Joker in the Death of the Family storyline, his death redefined Batman again.
this was the first death I knew.
Right. This was happening in *88, I think, and it. Then 4 years ago he came back again.
Jim Starlin again.
Jim Starlin wrote all
He's
this.
a killer, that guy.
He is.
We need to kill someone. Get me Starlin.
Hatchet Man.
And this is the death that redefined Batman. You know, in '88, he still was only coming out of that Dark Knight Returns period. He still wasn't like the Dark Avenger he is now. And then through the broken multiverse, whatever you wanted to.
You still don't
Superboy's
understand
punch.
entirely.
No, Superboy's punch fractured the time stream and he slipped through.
That's stupid.
Yeah. And it's just one of those defining deaths that you just feel like it's undoing something important that happened.
Well,
You felt betrayed.
Do
by
you
what they
need
were talking
Jason
about.
Todd in the DC universe? That's what does he fill a void? Does Barry Allen coming back fill a void? There's already two Flashes plus other fast people that run around. I mean, do you need another Flash? Do you need Barry?
The other
There's like
thing
6
about,
Robins.
The other thing about Jason Todd is, more or less, that defined an era for Batman.
Yep.
His death, the way that he did things, the way that he, and granted, it was starting to get a little tiresome. Like where you're like, okay, Bruce,
Right.
pick it up, let's move on.
Although,
But
I mean,
still,
you're talking about his basically his son dying. I don't think you ever get over
no,
that.
absolutely, but you can't have the character brood for 20 years.
I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you have to fudge facts a little bit. Now, just like it's almost the same thing as if they brought Gwen Stacy back. Like he went through the thing, he got over it, he got past it, he moved on with his life, and now it's like, no, he's alive.
Would bringing Gwen Stacy back be worse than the Brand New Day?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think so? Do you
Yes.
think the fervor would be worse than?
Well, the Brand New Day was originally supposed to, from what I've read, it was going to rewind continuity back and have Gwen alive, and she was going to come back.
Wow.
And be back like never died.
he was going to be like high school age.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
That should have
would've
been what they did. I would have loved
very off
that.
topic. But
But I just think that certain deaths, Barry Allen, Jason Todd, like that. I think the next one is.
Well, actually, I thought of one that sort of fits in these
Okay.
before we move on to it. But Hal Jordan was a death that happened that they brought him back, and I think it was entirely justified.
yes.
Like he
never really died.
Well, whichever way, like he was supposedly gone, and they brought him back, and it was like
He
that's
was
a character.
sort of dead.
Yeah.
He was
right.
mostly dead.
dead.
Well, he was the
Spectre.
That's a dead person.
Yeah, he was dead. He was
But
dead.
what I'm saying is they brought him back, and it wasn't like, oh, it's so lame they brought him back. It
That
was
needed
more
to
like-
happen because they just fucked his character.
Right,
That was the character they just ruined.
Right, and so that we kind of are okay with.
I think it depends on how you handle it. I mean,
Yes.
Barry goes out saving the universe. Jason Todd goes down saving his mother from the Joker, even though he didn't because they both died.
Right.
But he tried, and that's how he died heroically. Captain Marvel didn't die heroically, but his story was so important.
Yeah.
Die of Cancer, I think, is a good story to have. But it's like we're bored with Hal Jordan. We'll make him a psychotic killer. But that's not even nearly what Hal is. Well,
Right.
we're kind of bored with him.
Well, and
That's why.
We don't
I
know
think
what to
that's, I
do,
think
so
that's
we're
why
trying
that's
to
okay.
solve
and there's another, and over on the Marvel side, there's a similarly defining death.
The untouchable death.
The untouchable death.
Bucky must not live.
It's funny
And-
because for years that was the edict. You'd read it in interviews and things as Bucky will never be back. We're never bringing him back. Never.
But however, just like in any good narrative,
Right.
the rule goes that if you say this will never happen, it must happen.
Right, I know.
I mean, so they And nobody
Nobody thought it was going to work.
has faulted the way that Ed Brubaker brought back James Buchanan Barnes.
Well, the thing is, nobody thought it was going to work, and then no one thinks it didn't work.
Right. Well, let's talk about that after this message.
Thanks to GoDaddy.com for sponsoring iFanboy. If you want to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has what you need. .com names starting as low as $1.99, plus world-class hosting, fast and easy website builders, and much more. Visit GoDaddy.com today and use the coupon code iFanboy and save 10% off your purchase. And thanks to Netflix for sponsoring iFanboy. With Netflix, you can rent over 100,000 titles online, including Blu-ray titles with free shipping both ways to your home. They now have over 40 shipping centers, so almost all deliveries happen in just one business day. Plans start from only $4.99, and as a new member, you can get a free 2-week trial membership. Go to www.netflix.com/iFanboy to check it out.
So those who might not be in on the Captain America lore, he had a sidekick in World War II named Bucky, James Bucky Barnes, who died heroically trying to stop a missile or something. It
was a
rocket.
Yeah,
Baron Zemo shooting a rocket.
And he died. And like we said earlier, Bucky can't bring Bucky back. And then Ed Brubaker comes to Captain America and brings Bucky back.
Well, the interesting thing before we get into that is Bucky is the dominoed mask teen sidekick of Captain America. Robin's the dominoed mask teen sidekick of Batman. Both brought back on the same day.
Which was freaky.
They're both. Yeah, we talked to Ed Brubaker about this. His issue where Bucky came back was shipped the same week as the issue that Jason Todd came back. Totally coincidental.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, Bucky.
But I mean, like the story was so well done and so interesting and nuanced, and also like they weren't making a big deal of it. They weren't like, this week Bucky back. You know, it wasn't.
No,
like
they did.
that.
Yeah, it was just very slow and subtle. Basically, they said that he survived it. He survived the explosion, and he was taken in by the Russians or whatever.
The Russians made him
into an assassin who they put into stasis and then come out, and he was a Winter Soldier, and he had a new arm, a
So he's
metal
only
arm, and
aged
stuff like that.
slightly over
yeah.
this. Over the
And
decade.
honestly, I mean, I'm the biggest skeptic and continuity nerd as it comes, and I read this whole thing, and I bought I scooped it up like ice cream. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's a testament to Brubaker's writing that he did it
really
so
well
well. I just think, they found a place for Bucky in the world, whereas I don't think there's a place for Jason Todd. And the place in the world was another death, was Captain America then was killed. And that's why Bucky came back, basically, to the torch get passed.
Yeah.
Which is almost sad because the lead up to it had built Steve Rogers up to a place where you were like, Steve Rogers is the greatest thing to ever grace a comic book page, which is what makes it effective.
Yeah. When Captain America died, it was a big deal.
It was on
And I don't
the
think,
news.
and honestly, I know. I mean, we're always like, we're just waiting for. I don't think he's coming back.
I think he will, but not for a while.
Not for a long time.
Again, Brubaker's bringing him back.
I mean, and Brubaker's even said he doesn't understand why everybody's always like, when's Cap coming back? Because he's not planning on bringing him back.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
But eventually he's gonna come. I mean, but that's the thing. Like that's the end of any comic book conversation is, no, great, good, ... But he
part of that is when DC killed Superman.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the big that was one of the big things, biggest stunts in DC Comics history.
In comics history.
In comics history was the death of Superman in the early '90s. Doomsday beats him to a living pulp and he dies, and it was Jesus. He killed Superman. He came back.
But it was a year. I mean,
It was a year.
Which is longer
time
than.
It's a long time to not have. They had Superman books that whole time, right?
Yeah, it was
it was the
Superboy,
reign of
Steel,
Superman.
Right.
Cyborg, and Eradicator. Yeah, he had those glasses.
The glasses. Isn't Eradicator Cyborg? No, he was different.
No, Cyborg Superman.
Hank Henshaw.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know that.
Is it worth coming back from the dead if you have to come back with a mullet?
Well, it was 1993, so it was a different.
Well, at the time, I mean, he could have played bass in White Lion. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, or Pearl Jam, or Alice in Chains.
But
Pearl Jam had a mullet.
this has to be the most famous death.
It
Just
is.
because it's the most famous character to have been.
But the thing is that when he died, it made the news, it did all the kind of stuff, and he came back, and it felt cheap, and it felt annoying, and it was it. I mean, it was a good thing for them to do sales. Was it a good thing long term in the life of the character?
It didn't really affect, honestly.
It's over now. I mean, like it's.
They don't mention it. It doesn't ever come up.
Well, every once in a while they mention Doomsday.
Yeah, but it's not like
bring it up.
he's racked with I was dead.
Yeah.
And what the legacy of this, the negative legacy, well, besides there's other. I mean, it wasn't a great story, but this is what led to Green Lantern dying. This is what this DC saw such a huge sale and spike. This is we talked about earlier. Why did they do this? For money, because. There were lines out of every comic book store that day that came out. I know. I went to a bunch of them to buy it, and they were down the hall. so much money was made from this that they then a year later kill off, not a year, but literally it was within the same decade. Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Yep. They were ushering in.
They're ushering in the new.
Yeah, because then they had a new Green Arrow, a new Green Lantern. Yeah, they were doing that. They were force feeding this legacy thing, which is so successful now.
But doing it with the big event death.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Saying, "Oh no, now we're going to kill Green Lantern." Remember when we killed Superman?
Which is the opposite of what they did with Captain America. I mean,
Yes.
Captain America was hidden. I mean, like you get the sense
Yeah.
that. I was surprised to see.
Well, yeah, they
news
did.
coverage about
Marvel
it.
did that very, very well. But
Yes.
but then previously, Hawkeye died a couple of years before that, and that was it was Avengers Disassembled, and the big thing out of that was that Hawkeye died.
Yeah, but the thing is,
And-
I forgot until we mentioned it a few months ago. I was like, "Oh yeah, he did die."
Because they
Like,
brought her back, yeah. And it was
it was a non-event
But what's
event.
but what's funny
He's
though
still
is
not
the,
back to where he needs to be.
He's basically dead to Josh.
yeah. But what's funny is that when it happened, because not only his fans got pissed because like people hated Bendis and didn't want to read him on Avengers because the first thing he did was kill Hawkeye and made him go out not like this, and it was just like and it got.
He kind of went out like a punk.
He went out like a punk, and the internet fans told Bendis about it. He didn't expect it, and it's very, very funny.
Do you think
but
I figured Bendis knew that.
no, here's my theory.
He writes so far ahead, he forgets.
Here's my theory about Bendis and what he's doing on the Avengers. I believe what he's doing on the Avengers right now is a Hawkeye story. That's what it's going to end up.
I think so.
It's going to end up being a
He
Hawkeye
clearly
story.
has
Yeah, it's a Hawkeye
affection
story.
for that character, and
Yeah.
I think that he killed him. He built him up, killed him,
Yeah.
so that he could bring him back and make him greater than ever.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
feels to me like what
In
it
a
should be.
knockoff ninja suit?
Well,
Well,
that
it's a
has
matter
to
of
be
time.
part
It's
of
a
the
matter of time.
transitional
Yeah,
period.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they're really setting up that
I
young
really-
Avengers team with the. And they did the whole thing where he passed the
bow.
bow to her,
Yeah.
did the whole special issue about it.
And she should probably die. Listen, Marvel. I will write that story.
I really don't think they're doing it. I think they want to have
I
this
will
new
write
team.
that story. I will pay somebody. I want her dead. If you're out there,
Oh God! If we're gonna
You've
be
got a
raising any
problem.
money, we need to kill the Sentry. So yeah.
So now you're a huge X-Men fan. The most famous X-Men who's died is
Jean Grey.
over and over
Okay, now I got a bone to pick.
and over.
Everyone makes the joke about Jean Grey dying over and over.
Oh, she just died now.
She has died twice. She's died twice. That's
Wait,
it.
3.
No, twice. What happened was that early in the X-Men years, the whole Dark Phoenix saga was all around. They were in space. They crashed in Jamaica Bay. She came out of the water as Phoenix, and then she became Dark Phoenix and all that kind of stuff. And then she took her own life at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga. Fast forward a few years later, they want to relaunch the original 5 X-Men as a team, but they don't have Jean Grey. So what they do is they make the Fantastic Four annual. I forget what issue it was, what annual number it was. But Reed Richards finds a cocoon on the bottom of Jamaica Bay, and turns out the Phoenix Force cloned Jean Grey, and Dark Phoenix was the clone of Jean Grey.
Oh,
And
those
so
clones.
So it wasn't her. So what they found was her in stasis at the bottom of Jamaica Bay. They woke her up, and she's back.
Was
And-
Claremont writing the Fantastic Four
no,
at that time?
No, it
Was
wasn't.
it Byrne?
I think it was Byrne.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Remember when the X-Men were integrated with the universe? Remember when they used to
Yeah.
cross over and
Yeah, I do, yeah,
team
I
up
like
with
that. That
other
was fun. It
things?
was
They don't
fun
do that
times.
anymore.
So she came back. So she died the one time, but it was a clone, and then later Grant Morrison, who I still believe his whole sole target of his entire run on New X-Men was to kill Jean Grey. From the get-go, that's what he was gunning for.
It was a good story.
Anyway,
She's been dead a while.
and she's been dead a while since then, and she hasn't come back.
been
So it's
7
been
I think
Twice.
that because she has
5 years?
various clones and there's Rachel Summers and there's
no.
Madeline
Wait,
Pryor.
Rachel Summers is her daughter from an alternate future,
Right, but-
and Madeline Pryor was a clone of her
Okay,
by
that's the
Mr.
one.
Sinister.
Okay,
Yes.
either way.
Which was a great storyline because what happened was that Mr. Sinister clones Jean Grey, makes Madeline Pryor. Cyclops falls in love with her, marries her, has a baby. Jean comes back, and Cyclops just leaves Madeline. Like they never even got divorced. It was like, and what's great is in a recent issue of Uncanny X-Men, I guess they're bringing Madeline back, and it ends with Cyclops going, "It's my dead ex-wife."
I think there's various red-headed Phoenix
Yes.
/ Jean Grey type of people, and they're always coming in and out, and that's what feeds that.
Yeah, but
thing.
she's only died twice.
Is she dead now?
Yeah,
Yes.
she is dead now,
Well, unless she's the baby in Cable.
unless she's the baby in Cable, which we don't know.
No, who cares?
Because I'm not reading Cable.
Who cares about that anymore?
But
Stupid baby story.
yeah, I hope it's not. Maybe it's Rachel. Who knows?
But the whole point is they do this because we
Well, the
get
thing-
excited and we buy them.
But the thing is, to go back to Jean Grey, is that when she died in Dark Phoenix, it had resonance. It was like it was. I mean,
She gave her life.
It was
Yeah.
suicide, and whether it was the original intended story that Claremont wanted to write or not is irrelevant. It worked and made it a legendary story. It not only moved the story forward, it moved the Cyclops character forward. It was this thing that hung over the X-Men for years.
Well, when
It
a
was-
death
I
is
mean,
successful and good and written well,
Yeah.
that's what it does. It does that. It did that for Crisis, did it for the whole DCU with
Yeah.
Barry,
Broke
did it
my
for the
heart.
X-Men with Jean Grey, did it for Batman with Jason Todd. And when those deaths happen,
they get defined by it.
they're defined. They shouldn't ever be undone.
Yep.
You never say never,
So
but
there's
they
a
should.
way to do it.
There absolutely is a way to do it. You do it
you can't
when
do
it's
that
true
much.
to the characters of the story. But if you do it too much, like DC did in the '90s, it becomes cheap and stale.
Now, I wasn't reading comics when Jean came back in '86, so I don't know how I would have felt by it. Because when I started reading comics, she was around, so it was more of a historical fact. If they bring her back now, I'm probably gonna go, she's back.
Right,
I was pissed.
you want her to be back.
I wanted her to be
well,
back.
yeah, you want her to be back, and B, it's happened so many times across the board
Nobody
that
was
no
mad
one
when
cares.
Hawkeye came back, which they still haven't explained.
Yeah. Anyway, so
We have to kill the show.
So if you have any questions or you want to clarify anything that we were wrong or point out anybody who died, email us at contact@ifanboy.com.
In the comics.
In comics, yeah.
Chris Love.
So no,
Abraham
save your-
Lincoln died.
Save your obituary.
You didn't mention him.
If you want to give us a call, 888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697, and leave us a message there.
Or the place to do that would be go to www.ifanboy.com.